You're listening to In the Pod, Soybean Updates, a weekly trek into the latest soybean information from NDSU Extension. Top quality soybeans and higher yields are directly linked to soil fertility. Managing the right mix of fertilizer can be challenging. Brady Goettl, NDSU soil science specialist, has some answers. Brady, here we are in a year with high fertilizer prices. Where should soybean farmers focus their soil fertility dollars?
Yeah, when we think about overall soil fertility, NPK, those are always the big things top of mind when making soil fertility plans. In the soybean world, really we only have to worry about P, K, and S. When we think about fertilizing soybeans with nitrogen, there's some folks out there across the state that advocate for 50 pounds at planting. Research across North Dakota, a lot of work was done in Carrington, including surrounding states. It just doesn't show any economic advantage. If you have a well-inoculated soybean, which you should be doing, they're going to fix all the nitrogen they need. That extra 50 pounds or whatever at planting may allow the plants to green up a little bit faster, but it never really pays for itself.
What about managing phosphorus?
Yeah, phosphorus, when we think about fertilizing corn, nitrogen is top of mind. When we think about fertilizing soybeans, really phosphorus should be pretty top of mind. Our soils across North Dakota are naturally relatively low in phosphorus. We see the levels continuing to decline, but phosphorus is really expensive. Okay, so we don't want to just throw it out there willy-nilly. It's going to cost us a lot of money. Over the last 2 years across North Dakota, we actually did a soybean phosphorus rate study. And we actually found that if you have soil test levels that are 8 or above Olsen, we're really not going to see a benefit to the soybean crop by applying more phosphorus. Below 8 Olsen, we should apply it. We're going to see a benefit from that. But keep in mind, a soybean crop is going to remove a fair amount of phosphorus. So even if you're at that critical level, you won't see a yield bump. You should still probably be putting it on if the pocketbook allows, just to build up those levels for future crops.
What's the story with potassium?
Fertilizing soybeans with K is something I've talked about for the last 3 years. As soybeans continue to move west, we're removing more K from our soils than ever. You know, a good average soybean crop is going to remove 55 pounds of K per acre. So that's 100 pounds of potash. With the history of not really applying a lot of fertilizer to soybeans, we're removing a lot of K from our systems, and we continue to see these levels decrease across the state, especially in areas where soybeans start moving into what was historically wheat country.
How important is potassium?
It's incredibly important. So for soybeans, yield is very strongly tied to having enough potassium out there. And even when we start thinking about other crops, potassium is very important for having good seed quality. You know, with soybeans, if you're producing for the commodity market, seed quality isn't the highest concern, yield is. But especially if you start moving into specialty bean markets where protein is important, where oil is important, K is going to be your best friend for producing that high quality seed.
Brady, what's the best way to track these chemical elements in the field?
Yeah, so with all this talk about fertilizing soybeans and how much you should put on, where you should put it on, really the only way to know the answer to any of these questions is the soil test. And soil test regularly. If you've had a soil test within the last 3 years for P and K, we can probably rely on that and get some relatively good recommendations. Not so applicable to soybeans, but if you're sampling for nitrogen, that's really something that needs to be done every year.
Thanks, Brady. Our guest has been Brady Goettl, NDSU soil science specialist. You're listening to In the Pod, Soybean Updates, a weekly trek into the latest soybean information from NDSU Extension, supported by the North Dakota Soybean Council.